Compulsory registration came out in the UK in the 80s and 90s, and any properties then typically that have not changed hands before that time then are typically unregistered. Sometimes some of the councils have been through a process of registering properties that haven't changed hands, but they're kind of just going through that registration process. But often those properties that haven't changed hands during that period are then unregistered. So in Nimbus Maps Elite, what you can do is there's sort of 3 other ways in which you can, or 3 or 4 ways actually, which you can then go and try and find out who owns a particular parcel of land that you could be interested in. Those ways are the following, really. So we have any properties that are unregistered. We show as a little U. That's either orange, where we have an address. So that address can be helpful because you can write a letter to that owner and say, or to that address and say, I want to find out who owns this building. Can you help? The second way in which we do it is where they go yellow, is that's where we've been using our address matching function through our planning data, and that's then showing us that we've actually got a planning application behind a particular property. Obviously from that we can go and click the link, takes us through to the council's website, shows us that application. And then from the applicant's details, either the applicant will be the owner of that land, or indeed will be somebody that will be able to show us or be able to put us in touch with that owner. So that could be under the further information section, or indeed under the documents, where you can then go and look at the application form and see who the applicant is. So all very quick and easy. The third way in which you can do it is you can, if you can find a property then that's got one of our green L's for leases that doesn't sit on a red outline, what you'll find with those is that if you go and buy a copy of that lease, you'll find that party 1 of that lease was the grantor of that lease and was the freeholder of the lease when the freeholder of the title when the lease was granted. So party 1 to that lease then should be the freeholder. Obviously, if the property had changed hands since that lease had been granted, it would be edged in red, and the usual way of finding it would be a register, buy a register for the red outline that lease then sat on. So therefore, we kind of know that the party 1 to that lease would be the owner of it. And the final way which you can try to find owners of unregistered land rather, is by looking at the properties in a more holistic way. So what becomes very clear is that this parcel of land here was probably all in one ownership, and actually these 2 properties here have been sold from it. So this is particularly relevant this is central Cambridge, is kind of perhaps an unusual scenario, but certainly in the case of those large farms and things like that, where you want to understand, well, who owns that big farm, because I want to go and try and get a bit of land off it, or I want to go and try and option it up to do a strategic land piece on it, something like that. What you'll often find is that in the titles to these 2 properties, you will probably find a covenant that refers back to the parent title that it was carved out of. So in effect, there'll be a covenant on that title register. So I can click on obviously the registered parcel of land. I can buy a copy of that register in the usual way, and then when I look through that register, the chances are there'll be a covenant on there referring to the parent land that has been carved out of, to say, you mustn't affect what we're doing, or you mustn't stop, inhibit any development that I want to do in due course, and this sort of stuff, for that parent owner of the unregistered land. So that covenant then will steer you in the direction of who owns that parent land, the bit that I'm kind of interested in, to try and find the owners of that unregistered parcel. So all very quick and very simple through Nimbus Maps Elite.